we had a 3-cylinder, 35 horsepower Anzani in a single-seater job, and we gradually, without any dual control at all, I had one ride around the aerodrome with the chap who ran the unit, and about 400 feet, and I was very pleased with myself because I didn't feel dizzy or anything. It seemed quite nice. And without any dual control at all, I gradually got myself into the air. I always say that I held a book in one hand, which was written by a Frenchman, and the joystick in the other. And as I went along, I read how you did it. They didn't tell you much.
I borrowed £75 from my father and went to Hendon, the civil school. And there at Hendon, there were 3 schools down the apron. Graham White's school, they were employed teaching naval people. The London and Provincial School, the Beatty Wright School, and a 4th, the Raffy Beaumont School. I passed the Beatty Wright School, and they longed to have my £75. The chief instructor there wanted me to join that, and took me up in a little Wright biplane. It had an 80-horse rotary engine. Rotary is where the cylinders revolve like a Catherine wheel with a propeller attached to it on a crankshaft is stationary. And he said to me, "Young man, you ought to learn to fly this aircraft. It's a wonderful aircraft. All out 35 miles an hour, dead man at 34.
Never lost a young novice. I always had the new boy alongside me in the formation with a trained pilot outside him again. They were bewildered. They couldn't see. I can't tell you why. Eyes just don't adjust. The experienced pilot can see way into the distance. The new pilot sees absolutely nothing. And he hardly knows what's going on around him. So I made a particular point in watching those fellows. These are the fellows that were shot down. They were too easy. Both sides, probably. The experienced pilots lasted pretty well on the whole.
When I got first over there, the CO, Major McLaren, he greets you and he says, "Well, Smith, if you can last the first 10 days, you'll be all right. We always lose out new lads in 10 days. And he said, all I can tell you about that is to fly close when you see the Germans coming. And, I'm still alive.
Well, to fly, it was like flying. It was like an old car, but it was not. It was very easy to fly, very stable. It was about as easy as anything that we had. But for war, it was all cockeyed. It had the pilot behind and the observer in front, all mixed up in his flying wires and struts and things. And these Fokkers used to come along with a steep dive, and one was particularly good at it. And they had no field of fire at all. I mean, the pilot was probably an officer. That didn't make a difference anyway. But in any case, the gunner had very little chance of doing anything effective. We came out with better aircraft later on, with the gunner behind, and he was very much more difficult to attack. Well, the Germans had fought this out before.
I'd been on B-2Es and B-12s, and then I had to do my so many hours on my operational machine, which was the one you flew in France, and that was the RE-8, which we called Harry Tate. I remember sitting in the cockpit on the tarmac, ready to take off, and my flight commander came up to me, and he said, "Now, don't forget, Johns, if you turn left, you catch fire, and if you turn right, you go into a spin." So I took off and flew straight on for a while, and then happened to stall my machine and got into a spin and landed wingtip and nose. I was very relieved because I hadn't had my breakfast, so I ran into the mess and got my breakfast and watched the ambulance going to the wreckage of the machine. After that, let's see what happened. Do you know, it's such a long time ago that it's more of a dream to one than anything else.
I never liked Beethoven. I talked as a boy of 18. What do you know? But one has prejudices, one has feelings. He was, can you tell me the right word for bullshitter? Anyhow, he rather threw his weight about. He had a chap looking after his tail most of the time, and he was unattractive. They went for publicity, so did the French, so did the Americans, hard they could, and they made heroes all over the shop. And we were part of the army, said, well, we don't make heroes of all the chaps in the trenches, so we're not going to make heroes of our flying chaps either. Anyhow, that's how it was. So these German boys were tremendous heroes. They made an enormous splash in Germany when that Jaster claimed to have shot down 200 enemy aircraft, that's us, in 11 months. But it's not appreciated that 56th Squadron shot down 200 aircraft in 5 months. Now, that's never known. Because we never publicized and never went in for this sort of publicity.
Well, in 1917, certainly, when I had this what's called offensive patrols on an old 1.5 strutter, I'd see up in the sky, when I went over perhaps 12,000 feet, up in the sky in the sun, always with the sun, Richthofen Circus. They were fighters, all painted wonderful gaudy colors, looping and rolling like a lot of puppies, waiting in the sun for us. And when they saw we were over their side of the lines, down they'd come. I worked out a maneuver. Directly they started diving, I gave the signal, and we went round in a circle, chasing each other's tails, so all the 6 rear gunners could concentrate their fire on the descending Germans. And then I would move that circle very slowly round over our lines and get to the safety. But the trouble was, our youngsters, they came out from England very inadequately trained and probably made a mess of their engine controls and couldn't keep up. And I used to say to them, if you lag behind, you're a dead boy.
Afraid? I don't think I can remember a second when I wasn't scared to death. But once I was in the air, I was fine. But going to the machine and just taking off, once I was up a few thousand feet, that was it. One was fine. And at night, you were kept awake at nights. I was, quite a bit, thinking of what might have happened during the period that I was up, you see. And that didn't help either, because it took you a long time to get to sleep, you see. But in the mornings, you were generally all right.
We used to have a lot of sing-songs at night. We had a chap who was a most amusing fellow who would write words to all sorts of old songs, and most indecent words, the most part. And we got to learn these, and we all shouted them out. We had a good deal to drink. We drank a lot, there's no doubt about that. We certainly did drink a great deal. Much more like to think of now, more than people I think did in this last war. I suppose it was there, and you wanted to relax, and you drank. I don't think it affected, we were all pretty young, really.
I could never fancy myself shooting a man in cold blood straight up to him or running a bayonet into him. I thought, that's no good for me. I must get into the Air Force or something where I can kill them without being seen. I couldn't face doing it. I don't know whether I'm strange, but that's just my feeling, and that's why I joined the Flying Corps instead of the infantry.